Hi, it's Keith from Atlas Genius. Right
Atlas
on.
Genius has seen significant evolution in sound from your debut album to more recent work. How do you describe this evolution and what influenced these changes?
Um, well, sound-wise, Atlas Genius second record just went off into the just went to the woods. Like we just went, you know, sound-wise, we went off into a cabin high up on a Himalayan mountain, and because that record really, I we had a kind of a workflow on the first record. We did it all in Australia, and so when I listen back, there's a pretty homogenous kind of vibe to that record. And then second record was done here. I started writing it in Los Angeles. So obviously the setting was different. We had the success of the first record. Everything was kind of different, and then the pressure of like, hey, sophomore record, So that was I found that really difficult. That was a hard record to write because just the pressure, right? Of just thinking, okay, well, I want to deliver I want to deliver like another hit. So sonically, that's really different. I was experimenting with a lot of different techniques. Third record, like, let's just go back to the first record, right? Because I really enjoyed that first record, making that record, and we did it. So we went back to the same studio that we own in Australia, and sort of banged it out, most of it in like 6-7 weeks, and it was using a lot of the same equipment. We've grown and changed and learned things, but there's a rawness to that first record that I wanted to kind of capture a bit more of on this record. And I think that's kind of a path I'm still on, actually, with stuff I'm making subsequently. So it's kind of like there was an evolution, then a de-evolution. Like I kind of wanted to get back to the grittiness that I think I was really turned me on about that first record.
And the band has a strong foundation in family with the Jeffrey brothers, sorry, at its core. How does this family dynamic influence your music making the process? Is it difficult or?
Yeah, so love it or hate it, we're a band of brothers. Also a great show, and so there's a closeness and an understanding, but there's also like a tendency to push each other beyond what how you would normally push someone if they weren't a family member, because there's that elasticity. You can push them, and then you kind of tend to make up. So we've been working together forever. It feels like forever, and the idea of being in a band with people who weren't your brother, it's kind of a foreign concept to me. I've always just been, there's a loyalty, right? There's a loyalty that we have, and so yeah, I mean, we're still kicking. I think that had we been given being in a band for 12 or 13 years, Atlas Genius, the time that it's been around, it's probably 13 years. We probably wouldn't still be a band if we weren't family, right? Because you come back and there's that tightness, and let's go again. Whereas keeping a band of 3 or 4 people who aren't siblings going in the same direction, it's kind of like herding cats, and eventually people go off, and it's kind of at the end of it. It's hard. We look at how many great bands still have their original 3 or 4 members. Not many.
That's very true. Very true. So Trojans was a breakout hit that garnered significant attention online before you were signed to a label. How did this early success shape your career and your approach to music in the future?
Well, Trojans was the first track that we put out as Atlas Genius, with very little, and I must stress, very little expectation. I mean, we were just hoping that a few local people would hear it and hopefully like it. So when it got the success that it did, it was a really nice confirmation that what we were creating and what we continue to create, there was some merit to it. So like a lot of bands, you have different, you have other bands prior to that, and you write songs that no one gives a shit about, and they're kind of their formative learning experiences. So Trojans was a good kind of, for us, it was like a shot in the arm of like, yep, this is, and we had no idea that it would go on to what it eventually went on to, to go platinum, which is bonkers for the first song that we did purely in-house. Like everything was done in-house. We wrote the song, we recorded it, mixed it, mastered it. So, and even my brother distributed it in the sense that he put it up on the internet, on a few blogs and whatever. So it was just it was a it was validation and sort of allowed us, gave us the confidence to continue.
You've toured extensively in various regions. Can you share how your international audience differ and any memorable experience from your tours?
Yeah, so touring, you do tend to notice, this is obviously generalizations, but each country has a vibe, and it's funny because America and Canada, even though they're just right side by side, there's a huge difference. You cross the border and you play in Toronto or you play in Winnipeg or anywhere like that, it feels different than when you play, say, just below and you play like in Buffalo, even though it's just across the border. And so American audiences are generally like really fun, quite loud. Canadian and Australian audiences are a bit like, like show us what you got. Like they're not going to give it to you unless like you bring your A game, and even then they probably won't give it to you. And Mexico, just bonkers, amazing. Like so loud and energetic. I don't know why I don't live there. I love it.
And your music often features a blend of electronic and indie rock elements. Can you discuss your approach to integrating these styles in your production?
Well, when I'm producing our music or anyone's music really, like because I produce other bands as well, I'm looking for something that just gives it a point of difference for me, like, and because then in my mind that will hopefully translate to our other people as well. So if the idea of finding an unusual combination of like a guitar sound that maybe you've heard this sound, but there's a synth sound with it now that gives it some sonic identity that means that it doesn't sound like anything else, right? Like Trojans, that is a good example. Like the chorus there, one guitar part, a synth part, but that pairing is unusual, and the rhythm of it kind of gave it a point of difference. So I'm always searching for something extra that piques my interest. Just selfish. It's like I just don't want to do something that just sort of is just sort of like anything I've done before, and hopefully not like anyone else has done before.
What challenges did you face while producing your album, if any, Inanimate Objects, and how did you overcome them?
Inanimate or the new one? Or
Inanimate.
The second record?
Yeah.
What challenges? So making the second record sucked, right? It was a really hard process. It took us probably a year, and we'd changed countries, like we'd moved. So Mike and I had moved from Australia to Los Angeles. So it was exciting and fun, but kind of focusing on what we wanted to do, it was kind of hard to get the noise out, and so it took longer than I would have liked. I still liked the record, but when I think back on it, it wasn't a super enjoyable experience. It wasn't a happy time for me. So that kind of influences. When I think back on it, I think it's kind of tinged a bit, but other people hear it and they don't feel those woes. So hopefully they enjoy it.
Was there anything that helped you overcome that?
No, there was like making that record. I just had to battle through, and it was like it was just an anxious time. And I think that like when I contrast that with the first record and the latest record, the third record, End of the Tunnel, they were generally really like fun days in the studio. The first one because there weren't really a lot of expectations because no one knew us, so who cares? Let's just have fun. And then the third one because it's been so long that like it's just there's no pressure. So yeah.
Okay. And you've had successful collaborations in the past. Is there an artist or a band that you haven't worked with yet that you'd love to collaborate with in the future?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think of artists that I would like to collaborate with. I love Beck, Death Cab for Cutie. Those were some of the like when I was really getting into songwriting or production. I just love the Death Cab for Cutie. Plans is one of my favorite records. It's so good I can't listen to it because it's just too painful. But it's a perfect record. That's two artists I think. Yeah.
Can you talk about your creative inspiration behind your latest single and what message you hope it conveys to the listeners?
On a Wave? On a Wave is the subtlest social commentary I can make. What I was trying to do with that song is, I was trying to write a Tom Petty song, and failed because it doesn't sound like Tom Petty, but I was really listening to like just really getting into that kind of basic chord structure that say a Tom Petty song would have, and then with a really strong melody and the chorus came first, the idea of On a Wave, and that then informed all the verse lyrics. And On a Wave is me talking. It's not me talking about surfing, although I love surfing. It was about the idea of just riding the wave of like the ups and downs and just being present. Because I mean I've gone through a lot in my own life, like we all do. And On a Wave is just kind of like a, you know what, it's okay. Let's just go with this and we've written it and we're probably still writing it and it's okay. Just it's a sort of the idea of letting go.
Okay. And you had mentioned like, moving out here and everything. How has been living out here changed your musical outlook or anything like that, your process?
Well, living out in LA, so I lived here for nearly a decade leading up to the pandemic, and then went back during the last 4 years. Living here really opened my eyes. There's a lot of, obviously, huge amount of creatives and so many influences, but also it gave me a really great appreciation for the simplicity of Australian life and what I obviously took for granted, like we all do when whatever you grow up in a town. It's the most boring place in the world to you when you're a kid. So LA was a really valuable time for me, but now I live in Australia. I think like anything, it's hard to evaluate until a long way down the track. Like, how did you change? So I think I'm still working that out.
Okay. And with the changing landscape of the music industry, particularly with streaming and social media, how have you adapted your strategy for releasing music and engaging with fans?
Oh, poorly. Engaging, like social media is, I mean, it's an addiction. Like social media is an addiction. Like for me and for most of us, like I enjoy it, but as a creative, I know it's taking energy away from what I really should be doing and what I love doing. And so the idea that I consciously have to focus on posting at the right time, posting the right content, etc. It sucks. For me, it's not something that I love, but I know it's important. But I also do feel that we're still trending in that, like, there's just more and more demand for you to find the right way to connect on TikTok or Instagram. And I know it's important, but at what point do you go, like, I really need to, like, where do you limit it? And it almost feels like there's no limit that you need of how much time and energy you need to put into it. So I don't love it. I don't think I'm healthier for it or happier, and both in my personal life and for music. So, and I'm not an expert on like, there's some people that thrive, some artists thrive on TikTok, at certain types of artists, and so it's good for them.
Right. And what's your songwriting process like? Do you start with lyrics, melodies, or instruments first?
It's honestly, when I'm writing a song, it can start from a bed of music that I feel, and Trojans is an example of that, or it can start from a couple of lines that I've written when I've been walking the dogs. I'm thinking that, okay, that's, I'll be thinking about something and a certain phrase will come into my head, so I'll make sure I write it down, and that might be the impetus for that song. Or it might just be, the old-fashioned way, get a guitar, start strumming, and there's no real. I used to be always about the music first and then the lyrics, but now it's a mixture.
Okay. And is there any advice that you would like to give any young fans of yours that are maybe in the future or even right now picking up an instrument, trying to produce something? Would you give them any advice?
My advice for a young artist or young band or anyone, any creative, whether it's a painter or whatever, is to be prolific. Like, write every day and finish it. It's a really hard thing to do. It's something that I am not great at, but finish what you're doing. Finish that thought or that song or that poem or that painting on that day, because almost every time you come back, and something about your mood is different. And so you're like, what was I doing there? I don't know. And so you're much less likely to finish that if you don't do it when you're in the zone. So, and you might be running late for something, but that's okay. Like, you're an artist, so everything else can fuck off. You can just spend those 3 hours or whatever you need to do to get that song or that painting or whatever to the point where it's done, or at least it's at a safe place. Like, as a songwriter, it doesn't have to be recorded, but you've got like a demo of it where I know what I'm going to do. That's the most valuable thing for me.
It's great advice. And looking forward, what can we expect from Atlas Genius? What can your fans expect from the coming year, years coming? Are there any new projects, tours in the horizon, anything you want to plug?
Well, I think what our fans can expect is a lot more output. We were in musical purgatory for like a few years, like a good few years, and that's why it's been so long between records. And now I feel this real freedom to put music out. And so, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd be putting out, a song every 6 weeks. I mean, that, and a lot more content, because we've got a lot of songs in the bag. This record is the first chunk of those, but I just want to really get more music out, because there was never an intention to take a huge hiatus. It happened, and so, but I just want to make sure that doesn't happen again, and we just keep putting out music. And look, if there's 7 people listening, it's okay. Maybe 6, it's whatever,
Thank you so much, man, for sitting down with me and giving me this time.
Cheers.